Hello, everyone. Good morning, where I'm at. Good morning, to wherever you're at. Good afternoon, maybe even good evening. Welcome to Fold Academy. My name is Arda Omer. I am the kids program coordinator at the Fold, and today we have Anuja Varghese, who is here to talk about building characters using role-playing games. Before we start, just a few housekeeping notes. So the workshop's approximately an hour, and it'll include 15 to 20 minutes of questions and answers at the end. You can share these questions that you may have in the Q&A box. Please do not put your questions in the chat just because it won't be answered. And use the chat to chat with your fellow attendees, express excitement, share your thoughts, potentially even some of the things you end up writing here, who knows. And we are also using auto captioning via Zoom for today's event. It will not be transcribing everything correctly, but we will correct the transcription when after the event has been recorded and uploaded to YouTube. Yes, this event will be uploaded to YouTube. So next week, a week after the festival, this event, you will receive, for those of you who have registered, a link to the YouTube video with the corrected transcripts. Before we get into the event, I just wanted to share that the Festival of Literary Diversity will run from April 26th to May 3rd. I want to highlight a few sessions that are designed specifically with writers in mind, especially those who attend our Fold Academy series. This includes Pitch Perfect Live, which is a live manuscript critique by agents and editors, the Writers Hub. It is a virtual marketplace where you can meet representatives from publishers and other literary organizations, and then panels and workshops that will teach you more about the publishing industry, like our Lunch and Learn series. Registration actually opens Wednesday, March 25th. If you want a sneak peek of all of the events, you can join the Fold newsletter, and I'll share that link in the chat. All right, finally, I'm excited to introduce our author. Anuja Varghese is an award-winning writer of literary fiction, fantasy, and erotica romance, where women of color get leading roles. In 2023, her short story collection titled CHRYSALIS won the Writers' Trust of Canada Dayne Ogilvie Prize and the Governor General's Literary Award for Fiction, and in 2024 was longlisted for the Carol Shields Prize for Fiction. Her debut novel, A Kiss of Crimson Ash, is the first in a D&D and Bollywood romantasy trilogy, which is forthcoming in spring 2026. Anuja lives in Hamilton, Ontario, with her partner, two kids, and two cats. Please, everyone, welcome Anuja.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone see me, hear me? It's okay. Does it look okay to everybody? I'm very excited to talk about building cool characters today using some of the tools from role-playing games. I'm specifically going to be talking about how we build characters in D&D context, but there's lots of different games we can talk about as well. We're going to be live rolling a character, so we'll see how that goes. We are going to try and do a little bit of writing towards the end of this after we talk about our character building a little bit. So, what you do need, the only thing you really need is something to write with. You either need a piece of paper and a pen, open a note on your phone, open a Word doc, whatever it is, however you feel comfortable. And there's super like no pressure to write anything like good, or I'm not going to ask anybody to share their work. So don't feel any pressure around that. It's really just to have fun, to play, to see what you come up with. And, you know, if you spark a character that you might want to keep working on, that's fantastic as well. So I'm going to share my screen. Can I do that? Replace current share? Is that what I want to do? Let's see. Can everybody see that? Is that a yes? Is that a no? I can't tell.
Yes, sorry. We could see.
Okay. Oh, I can't see it though. Okay, fantastic. Okay, great. So we're talking about building our characters using your RPG toolbox. I'm going to start super right at the beginning. So this might be very basic information for people who are familiar with role-playing games. What is an RPG? An RPG is any type of game, so online tabletop card games, LARPing, so live action role plays that require players to have control of or make decisions for imaginary characters. So if you think about just most regular board games, it's just you playing a game against other people and you are trying to win. In an RPG, you're playing a role, you're playing a character, you're making up characters, and you're kind of making decisions and playing in a world as that character. Um, so the decisions and actions that your characters make are going to influence the game, the story, the ending. So sometimes if you're writing a story in general, you might have an ending already set. But when we're talking about these kind of characters, what those characters do is going to influence the way that story goes. And that's something interesting to think about in your own writing and in your gameplay. So some role-playing games allow you to role-play an existing character. So if you think about like in video games, for instance, if you're playing The Witcher, you're playing as Geralt of Rivia. So you're playing an existing character. You're still making decisions for that character that change the outcome of the story, but you're playing as an existing character. In a lot of other games, in D&D, sometimes you have the ability to make up a completely new character. And obviously, in your own writing, you are constantly making up new characters who are doing things and making decisions in your story. So, common elements of most RPGs include ability to either randomly or intentionally build a character using specific physical and personality traits and descriptors, ability to level up your character through some specific system, which is also interesting to think about because I'm sure we've all read books or stories, especially in fantasy settings sometimes, where this character is going to start out and they know nothing, they're a nobody, and then very quickly they can do everything, they're so good at everything, and you're just like, what, this doesn't make sense. So thinking about the ways that your character levels up either in your writing or in your gameplay is an important part of your character building. Another sort of component of it is usually some kind of game master, narrator, dungeon master. This is the person who is controlling your NPCs, your non-player characters, introducing new conflicts, just kind of keeping the story moving. So you as the writer in your own work are your own kind of dungeon master or your own kind of game master of the book. Sometimes we do say things like, "Oh, my characters made crazy decisions and I didn't know where that was coming from." And that's a very common feeling, but ultimately you are in control of those characters and you are the one sort of controlling that, where that story is going. Some element of chance. It is, when we're talking about our RPGs, it is still a game. So there is usually some level of chance to it, whether that's cards that you're drawing that are like telling you different things that are happening. Sometimes it is dice. Those are my dice. So your game master might tell you things like, okay, roll for initiative, roll for perception, things like that, so that you don't always have the option to say, my character tries to leap over this building and they make it every time. My character tries to, shoot these hobgoblins and they kill every one of them and they make it every time. That it's fun to write maybe, but it's not always super interesting to have a character that succeeds every time. So we introduce this element of chance, so that sometimes you don't even know whether your character is going to succeed or fail, and then you sometimes have to change the trajectory of what that character is going to do based on what the dice tell you. An interesting element for character building. And just some examples of common RPGs include Dungeons and Dragons, most common one, been around the longest. We're going to be talking about that today. World of Warcraft, Elder Scrolls, Pathfinder, tons of video games, lots more to think about. That is your basic rundown of what is an RPG. This is your little party, your adventuring party. This is you. So let's talk about what makes a compelling character. And this is something that's true both for building a character within a role-playing game and just in your own storytelling, right? What makes a compelling character? A couple different things. Detail. So you want to have a character with some interesting details about them. You want a character with a little bit of history behind them. They want to feel lived in. They want to feel like a real person or orc or whatever in the world. And even if all your characters' history, backstory may not make it onto the page or into the game, it probably won't. But it is important for you to know what that character's history is, because all that history is going to inform the decisions your character is making right now. If you think about even yourself as a real person, everything you've been through up to this moment in your life influences who you are and the choices you make every day, right? History. Specificity. So as the more specific you can make the details, the history about your character, the more interesting they're going to be. It's super easy to make a character based on really broad tropes, really sometimes vague descriptors. You might only have a pretty broad description of a character in your head. That's a great start. But then you want to start really tunneling down, like digging into who this character is. What are the specific things about them that make them unique, that make them interesting, that make them stand out from other characters? Relationships. Relationships are a big one for characters. We really tend to focus on, like, if you're building a main character, a lot, you may have some great, like, specific detail and stuff for them, but then who are they connected to in the world of your story? So building relationships for characters is really important and helps them feel real and like they live in a world and they have connections. Again, think about you in your real life, all the people that you're connected to in different ways, family, friends, coworkers, enemies, I don't know. You have all those things, and your characters need those things too. Momentum and agency. This is a big one too. So you need characters that are making choices, that are making decisions, that have something propelling them forward. Um, so the things that are moving your character through the story are important to put in for them. Momentum and agency for your character. And voice. We love characters with great unique voices, memorable voices. Is your character funny? Are they, I don't know, what it could be, tons of things, but considering what what they sound like physically, but also just like who they are, how their voice comes across. If you're writing dialogue for a character, what is that going to be, and how does that reflect all the other things that you know about them? Voice. So what makes a compelling character? These are some of the things that we think about. Okay, let's get into it here. 5 key elements of building your characters. These are kind of the 5 key elements we talk about specifically in D&D. Race, class, abilities, level, and alignment. We're going to talk a little bit about each of these. So I'm looking at race first. Really foundational character building piece. First question, especially in a magical setting, you're going to ask, is my character human? Is my character human? In a lot of our kind of real world writing, if you're writing kind of fiction in a more contemporary setting, in a more realistic setting, probably your characters are going to be human. That's totally fine. Other possible races that we see in D&D and other magical settings, dwarves, giants, elves, tieflings, lots of other possibilities. But yeah, foundational decision you need to make about your character. And then, for human characters in real world settings, race is also an important consideration. So, what is your character's racial background, and how does it impact the way they're going to function in the world, and how they interact with other characters, other people, and how other people and characters interact with them? So, important decision to start with for your character. Class. So this primarily defines what your character does. So we're talking about their profession, their calling, their passion, their skills. What do they do? What do they do in the world? So common classes in D&D specifically include fighters, bards, rogues, wizards, barbarians, clerics. There's lots of different ones to choose from. We can also think about class in terms of social class. So is your character rich or poor? Where did they, and so like once you sort of, once you start thinking about that, the implications of class start to get much wider, right? So where do they live? What do they wear? Who do they associate with? How do other characters interact with them and vice versa? So these decisions about class of character really impact the rest of the story and how that character is going to function in it. Abilities. Okay, this is the one that like everybody loves. Your stats, your character stats. These are your key personality building blocks. So we talked a little bit about, you know, what does your character do? This is who they are. Okay, so this is, you can see on the right side of the screen here, a typical kind of character sheet for D&D. This is only the first page of the sheet. It goes on for like 3 pages, so there's tons of room for like your character's backstory, their physical descriptors, things like that. But if you look at those 6 boxes along the left side of the sheet, those correspond to these 6 main abilities. So they are strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. 6 key abilities. So these are things you can think about for your gameplay characters, and certainly things you can think about for your characters in your writing as well. So we're going to just talk a little bit about each of these things, and then we're going to roll each of these things for a character and see what happens. Okay, so we'll just talk a little bit about each of these first here. So because some of them are a bit confusing and people kind of go like, well, what's the difference between intelligence and wisdom? So just to have a sense of what they are, we're talking about strength. Usually this is like physical strength for a character. Although I think you could also think about it in terms of maybe mental strength, emotional strength. But like in terms of physical strength, this is like athleticism, power, how physically strong is this person or elf or whatever they are. Dexterity. So this is more agility, reflexes, balance. So you could have a character that is not very strong at all. Maybe they're a little tiny character, but they are extremely dexterous. They have high agility, high flexibility. So those are different kinds of abilities that might impact what this character is able to do in a story. Constitution. This is like stamina, resilience, endurance. How easily does the character go down and how easily do they get back up? So I really think about this in a story. You know, in most stories, you're going to have some bad things that happen to your character throughout the story. And some characters can handle a lot of bad things and still be really optimistic and positive, and that's part of who they are. And some characters can't, right? And that's interesting to think about, like how many bad things can happen to this character before they start doing bad things back. Constitution. Intelligence. So this is more analytical skills, mental prowess, memory, problem solving. More, if you think of it more as like your book learning, this is that kind of an intelligent character versus wisdom, which is more innate, right? Your awareness of things, your intuition of things, insight. So it might be a character that hasn't gone to school at all, but they still have some kind of internal wisdom to them. And charisma, everyone's favorite, the Riz. This is confidence, charm, eloquence. And I think both sides of that are super fun to write. So characters that are super charming, great flirts in stories, very fun to write. And on the other side of that, you know, characters that are extremely awkward and clumsy and like put their foot in their mouth all the time. Also very fun to write. Charisma. These are your 6 kind of main abilities that you can think about for your characters. Level. So how good is your character at their abilities? Typically, at the beginning of a new game, your character would start at level one. Mostly in your stories, your characters aren't starting at level one. They're starting, they've already had some history in the world. They're starting somewhere, and you can decide what level you want your characters to begin at. But the important thing about this, I think, is that your characters should never end a story at the same level that they started, right? You have to give them room to grow and change and learn things. Um, I am the editor at a literary magazine, so I read a lot of stories, and very common feedback I give is what has actually changed for this character from the beginning of the story to the end. Because you can have a lot of beautiful interiority, you can have a lot of like things happening, but if essentially the character is the same and nothing has changed, you have a draft, not a finished story. Level. Alignment. You see people talking about this one a lot. So it's basically just a question around how does that character see themselves in the world, and or how do you see yourself and how do you see the world? So it's a combination of a relationship to morality, this idea of being kind of good, evil, or neutral, and a relationship to society, so lawful, chaotic, or neutral, right? So a careful character who is lawful good, follows all the rules, is fundamentally a good person. You may have a character who is fundamentally a good person, but doesn't always follow the rules. Follow the rules when it feels right to them. So you can sort of figure out where your character might fall within this combination of things. And then, I mean, there's always room for alignment to change throughout a story. But one of the things I think is important to think about is you may say, like, I really want to write a lawful good character or, whatever it is. But then throughout your story or throughout the game, you find your character doing questionable things, doing bad things, deciding to kill all the villagers, whatever it is. Um, those decisions that the character is making may not be in line with the alignment that you chose, and that's something to think about in your writing too. If you set out at the beginning, this character is this thing, you need to prove that throughout the story by like providing examples showing the reader the character being the thing you said. Alignment. So okay, that was a lot of me talking. We're gonna try and live roll a character, which is always risky. So we'll see how it goes. So you do need something to write with here. I'm gonna roll this one. So the lowest score you can have when you live roll a character, you're gonna live with three of these just regular six-sided dice. So the lowest score you can have for your character is going to be a 3. The highest score you can have is an 18. A 3 is a very, very low score. If you had a 3, like if you think about most animal characters, for instance, would be like a 1. So a character that's a 3, if you had a 3 for something like strength, you might consider that, okay, is this character sick? Are they injured? Are they disabled? Like think about the ways that those stats might really impact what that character can do in your story. So let's see. I'm going to go back to here. Okay. So let's roll a character. I'm gonna roll for everybody, and we're just gonna see what happens. So let's start with strength. I'm rolling a stat for strength. So hopefully everybody's writing down strength. We're gonna write down a number next to it. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, I've got a 5, a 3, and a 2, 8, 9, 10. So we've got a 10 next to strength. Really middle of the road character here for strength. We've for dexterity. I'm rolling again. For dexterity, we've got, let's see, 4, 5, 6. Pretty low score for dexterity. This is not a middle of the road strength character, but not a particularly agile or flexible character. Okay. See if we can get a high score. Let's see. I've got a 6, a 4, and a 2 for Constitution. What's that? A 12? 12 for Constitution. Okay, so they're pretty, again, middle of the road for resilience. How fast do they recover from things? Okay, for wisdom, let's see. I've got a 6, a 3, and a 1, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Again, okay, so we've got a really like middle of the road character here for most things. That was for wisdom, 10 for wisdom. So again, not going to be a particularly super wise character, but also not totally clueless either. Okay, I'm rolling here for wait, well, which one was that? Was that wisdom or intelligence?
Wisdom. I think you skipped intelligence.
Okay, okay, let's call that wisdom. Let's do intelligence. Ah! Okay, this one's high. I have 6, 6, and 5. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 17 for intelligence. Intelligence? Yes. So this is a super intelligent character. That's interesting to think about. How did they get that way? Is this a character that has gone to school for a long time? Is this a character that has learned a particular thing really well? This is right now their highest ability, their highest stat. Oh, charisma. Let's see. Let's see. Let's hope for something really good. Oh, you guys. No. I have a 2 and a 2 and a 1. We have a 5. We have a 5 for charisma. This is an interesting character. This is a character who is extremely intelligent, uh, but not very charismatic. So maybe you're quintessential nerd. I don't know. I don't know. Okay. But hopefully you have your stats written down next to those things. Um, and we are going to just take super quickly, do like 3 minutes um, to write write this character, looking at those stats, looking at who you have. So this character has just woken up and can't remember their name. Your super intelligent character otherwise can't remember their name. That might be hard for a character that is used to being very intelligent. Uh, take 3 minutes and see what you come up with. I'll keep time for you. Go for it.
Just a reminder for those watching on replay as well. The stats are strength is 10, dex is 8, con is 12, intelligence 17, wisdom 10, and charisma 5.
Charisma 5.
So tragic. Someone in the chat did joke that this character is a Caleb Windogast type of character. Uh, and someone else also suggested a a druid maybe.
Yes.
But we do have some fans, some RPG fans here.
Leaving a character entirely up to chance can be risky, but it also can create some really unexpected things, which leads to interesting things in your writing. Just another minute or so. You know, it goes so fast when you're actually trying to write, but I'll get you to think about wrapping that one up. And you can always come back to these things if you're like, oh, there was a good idea here. Yes, I'm glad. There's probably are good ideas here. So don't get rid of anything you write. You can always come back to it. But I'll get you to wrap that one up, and we'll keep going here. Um, I want to talk a little bit about character and conflict, and just what creates tension and conflict in a story. So you can have fantastic characters, but they need to do things. They need to encounter conflict for that story to be interesting. So, what creates that in your stories and your gameplay? Your character wants and needs. Characters got to want things, they got to need things, and then they need some obstacles. There have to be some obstacles in their path to get those things that they want and need. Another way to think about is you have your character plus some kind of predicament, some kind of problem that they're in, that they're having, that they're facing, and then attempted extrication. How are they getting out of that situation? What other people are coming into the story to help them? What other, I don't know, magical things are happening that help them extricate themselves from that problem? Another thing I like to think about in terms of character and conflict is this idea of acute and chronic tensions. So, your acute tensions in a story are the things that are happening right now. The most immediate problems that your character is facing, that's the acute tension. So, like an example of an acute tension might be the character's house burned down, they got nowhere to go. That is a big problem. That's an immediate problem that they got to solve. Um, a chronic tension in a story is going to be all the other problems, all the historical problems, conflicts, tensions, traumas that have led to this particular problem, this acute problem. So, uh, their house burned down and they have nowhere to go. Okay, but why did they have nowhere to go? Why can't they call their parents? Why don't they have friends? Why don't they have any money to get a new house or whatever it is? So looking at all those other conflicts that might have led to this, so your character is always in a story navigating both of those things, trying to solve the immediate things, but also dealing with those chronic things as well. Two kinds of conflicts coming together to make kind of richer stories and richer characters. Okay, we might not have a ton of time to do this, but let's see how it goes. So we tried live rolling a character, and that's completely by chance, and that's just trying to like letting the dice decide. Mostly people aren't doing that. Mostly we are building our own characters, and that can be more fun to do. You get to make some decisions for the kind of characters that you want to write or play. So again, let's go through these six things. I'm gonna get you to place some stats this time next to for two characters. So place your own stats. You're going to use 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. So we're not going to have any threes or fives in this one. They're all pretty close together, but it's really giving you a sense of like, where do you want your character's real strength to be? Where do you want your character to be a little weaker in terms of who these people are? So place your numbers, place your stats for two characters. Place a stat for strength, dexterity, constitution, wisdom, intelligence, charisma. for two. And try and place them differently if you can. You may not place them differently for every single one, but you know, if you're going to put 15 next to strength for your first character, try and put 15 next to something else for your second character. So I'll give people a minute to do that. Don't think too much about it. It doesn't have to be super thought out. The idea is just to build these characters quickly, and we're going to write a quick scene, see what happens. So hopefully everyone's got their stats placed. 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, 8. You've got a stat next to each ability for two different characters. Yes? Okay. I'm going to switch this. So you have two characters with two different sets of stats. Your two characters are partners. They could be business partners, they could be a married couple, they could be teammates, whatever you want to do, but they're partners of some kind. One of these characters wants out of that partnership, the other does not. This is a conflict. So take a couple minutes, think about these characters, and see if you can write that scene. And consider as well the things that might be conveyed with words and things that might be conveyed with the body. If you have a character that is super physically strong, they might use their body in a different way. If you have a character that is super charismatic, they might, you know, talk their way out of this situation in a different way. So take 5 minutes with these two characters and see what comes out. I will keep time for you. Go for it. If you're thinking about things like intelligence and wisdom in an argument, you might see a character with higher intelligence drawing on more facts, more data. You might see a character with more higher wisdom stat drawing on the way they feel about a situation. Both very valid argument points. Often we see characters with high charisma being used to like persuade other characters. They can do that really well. Um, and especially for characters that are used to being good at doing things like that, it can be very frustrating when it doesn't work. Not sometimes it really does work, sometimes it doesn't. So making those kind of decisions about your characters can be really fun. Just about another minute or so to play with this one. Okay. Okay. I will get you to wrap that one up. Just wrap up your thought. I know it goes ridiculously fast and it does not feel like 5 minutes. But please come back to it if there's energy there for you. But you can kind of see we're just getting a sense of how those abilities influence the way that characters interact with each other, handle conflict, those kind of things. And I just wanna finish with a couple writer self-care things because writing can be a lonely pursuit and just some things to think about as you're embarking on your own writing. Things that I try and think about, sometimes successfully, sometimes not. Pay attention to your body, pay attention to, if you need to eat or drink or stretch, those kind of things will help you. If you're feeling like stuck in your writing, get up, go eat or drink or stretch and see what happens. Be gentle, be flexible with yourself. Not everything you write is going to be fantastic. That's okay. That's great. Keep doing it anyway. Be gentle, be flexible with yourself. Work on more than one character or story at a time. Not everybody loves to do this, and if that really doesn't work for you, you don't have to do that. I find it really helpful to have more than one thing, just because if you are feeling really stuck on one thing, you have something else creative that you can switch to and see what happens. Have a writing buddy or a writing group. Again, it can feel really like lonely to do it by yourself. It's much more fun to do it with other people. Share what you write with other people. I know that can feel really scary, and maybe you don't feel ready to do that yet. Whenever you do, share it with other people. It's great to start getting some of that feedback on your work. Put your story away and come back to it with fresh eyes. Always helpful to do. Consume other art. Get out into the world, see other things, read other things, listen to other things. I feel like that will always um, be inspiring for you and help you, again, come back to your work with fresh inspirations, fresh thoughts. And also just like believe in yourself, believe in your story, believe in your characters. And I say this as someone who has just written an entire fantasy novel, built like a giant magical world, and I lived there alone for a long time. And you really do have to just believe in your own magic for a long time. And I really encourage you to do that. It's a fun place to play. And that's what I got.
Amazing. Thank you, Anuja, for such a fun workshop. We're actually transitioning now into the Q&A. So if you'd like to ask a question, please put it in the Q&A box. If you prefer to ask your question verbally, you can raise your hand and we'll unmute you.
Will I
Um,
stop sharing?
yes, so they can see our lovely faces. And we actually have a question here from Carolyn. And she asked, I always like to think about min maxing when creating characters for both D&D and my own writing. Can you talk about how that might help writers avoid the trap of making perfect characters and embracing flaws?
Absolutely. I think that's part of the whole idea of like rolling a character or having these different kind of abilities or stats. We don't always think about that when we're just in regular writing outside of RPG sort of structures. If you're just thinking about a character, thinking about regular people, we sometimes don't consider what are those things that are their like key strengths? What are those things that are their key flaws? Um, but it creates such a rich character if you can consider what are the things that are real problems for them. What are they really good at? What are they not so good at? What do they think they're good at, but it turns out they're not good at? So all those kinds of and usually when you're writing outside of the RPG context, you're not necessarily like putting these numerical stats like next to your character's ability. You just have a sense of like who this person is. So it doesn't need to be that structured, but it's just layering this idea of where where those strengths are, where those flaws are, onto your characters, and having that sense as you're going through your writing and trying to carry that through a little bit. Just we talked a little bit about that if you start out by saying they're so stubborn, but throughout the story they're not. We're not seeing that happen in any context. I'm not seeing any examples, any of their actions backing that up, that thing that you said. So, and that starts to make your character feel not true. So really, once you've sort of decided on those abilities, and those abilities can change, but making sure that you're true to those things that you've used to build the character throughout the story.
Yeah, and I will say with the beauty of RPGs, which I know people have gotten into the larger pu public truly in like the last 5, 7 years, has really exploded. And I think part of the appeal of it is the storytelling element and how much you
Absolutely.
have the dice are really cool because it gets you out of your head. Like you're given a set of numbers and you now have to divvy up this range of numbers for a character that you didn't anticipate having the numbers that you were given, and now you have to decide, well, I guess they can't be super strong and super dexterous and super
Yeah.
smart and all these things at the same time,
Yeah.
which I find it's very freeing. It's this idea of like allowing you the ability to react, right, when you're playing the game.
Yeah, and
Olivia,
you do see a lot of, especially in fantasy, romantasy, the main characters are often they're so perfect. They're good at everything. They're so charming. They're so strong. They're magical. They're powerful. Which can be fun to read, but can also just be like, man, you know, we can't all be perfect. So it's nice. There's a real relatability when you can write a flawed character, and we really start to root for those characters to succeed.
and sometimes, again, depends on the tone you're going for, can make for great comedy.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Um, so Olivia asked, when writing your novel, were there ever any moments where you found issues with the rules of the world you created? And if so, how did you overcome those issues? I find this extremely difficult to figure out in my own writing.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I mean, in my novel, I have two kind of really distinct magic systems. So I'm working with elemental magic on one side and more of like a divine magic on the other. So and my characters, I have four main characters that correspond basically to a D&D adventuring party. So you kind of have this more sorceress character who has that elemental magic, and more of a cleric type character who is connected to a divine, to a goddess. And yeah, I definitely had those moments of trying to figure out how these systems actually work, and like what are the rules, and then if I'm saying her power does this in one context, does it also mean it can do these things? What can it do, and what can't it do? I had a lot of questions around like I say I had a lot of questions. What I mean is my editor had a lot of questions around, okay, but she healed a character in this context, why could she not heal this other character? And then we had to figure out like, okay, what are the rules? And those were really fun conversations to have. There were a lot of questions like I didn't think about as I was writing it. But then, as people are reading it and trying to ask those questions. So I think yeah, I understand totally. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing if you're struggling with it and you're thinking through it, because even in a magic system, it needs rules. It still needs to make sense in its own way. So great to think through it, and to figure out how those rules work in your world and for your magic systems. And the way
Uh,
the way we solved the like healing question in mine is that the elves or the like spellcasters are only able to heal each other. There's a sense that magic really bonds to magic.
Fun. And it's also it goes back to your like self-care, having like a writing buddy or it's hilarious because writing is a lot of it is solitary, but ultimately you do need another person because you're so in your head. And I'm sure you can ask any author that once you get that to a beta reader, to a relative, to a friend, to an editor, they're gonna ask questions that you're like, oh no, I was just hoping to hand wave that away, or oh, I
Yeah,
never thought about that.
thought
Um,
about that. Yeah.
so yeah, it doesn't
There's
have,
lots of things that make sense in your head, but you
yes,
didn't convey it in the story. So you're like, oh, I
yeah,
guess I have to clarify that. Yeah.
exactly. Rana asked, are there any advantages in showing the character's strength and constitution through a particular voice? For example, is the third person better for nuance rather than the first person narrative?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think both of those things can work. A first person narrative is sometimes feels a lot closer for the character, and you might have a lot more interiority as that character is like, I felt this way as this was happening. You can really get a sense of something's really knocking them down, or like what is propelling them to get back up after they've been knocked down. But yeah, I think it works for either first person or third person, but just figuring out um what is the thing that's either keeping them down or helping them to get back up after things go wrong.
Someone asked, how do you decide where to place a character on the alignment chart? Does it come based off of an idea you have, or do you decide based on the stats you roll, or does it come from somewhere else entirely?
I think it could honestly be any of those things. Like this, I don't know if it necessarily comes from the stats, because you could roll a character with any kind of stats who could be either very good or very bad, and then they end up using their great strength or great charisma or whatever to be very bad or to be very good or to be neutral. So I think the abilities can really play into any one of those nine boxes. I think it can either come from the kind of character that you want to write, the kind of character maybe that makes sense for the story that you're telling, if you have a sense of what that's going to be. Or as you're writing it, sometimes this happens as well. It changes, right? You may decide like, oh, I want to write a really chaotic, evil character. And then it turns out it's actually not that much fun to write a character who's genuinely chaotic and bad. You actually want the character to be heroic and have some kindness and redeeming qualities. So just by playing around with your character and with your story, seeing where things go, the alignment usually falls into place. In some games, it's actually you as the player don't necessarily decide your alignment. It'll be your dungeon master or your whoever's like running the game that sort of places that character for you based on what you're doing, based on your character's actions and decisions in the game. Because you can say you know, lawful good, but if you're doing bad things over and over again, you're not that.
Yeah, I will say the alignment is, it's like even with writing process, right? You can start at the beginning, maybe that's what like is the thing that's the most like clear thing about your character. You're like, oh, I know for a fact this is their alignment. This is the most like that given. And then it might just be after you've built everything else about the character, you're like, oh, I think they actually fall on this. And then again, in the actual role playing of it, which may mimic your writing experience, you don't actually know what their alignment is until you start reacting or things start unfolding and you're like,
Happening to them.
actually, it makes
Yeah.
more sense that they're like this. Let's be real.
Yeah.
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 All
And
right.
the more of those like character things we talked about, the more history, the more details, like their background, the things that have happened to them, all the chronic tensions of their life, all might play
Yeah.
into their alignment in this moment.
Exactly, exactly. And then we have Olivia asking the final question. It seems that fantasy is still a relatively small but growing genre within Canadian publishing. How did you find the process of bringing your book to a publisher?
Yeah, that's a good question. I am lucky to have an agent that really believed in this story and really believes in like especially diverse fantasy set in non-Western contexts. Um and sort of pitched it really well. So my first book came out with a small indie publisher. This is A Kiss of Crimson Ash is out with a big five publisher. So it's a very different kind of experience, but I do think we're Canadian publishing is a little behind the curve of where fantasy is in America and the UK, but I think publishers are really catching up to it and getting a sense that readers are so hungry for it. So uh, I think we're going to see every publisher really kind of coming out with their own imprints, trying to find more of this kind of bigger fantasy world, and I hope that it continues to grow in Canada.
Awesome. Thank you so much for this fantastic workshop. Highly recommend visiting the recording to do those prompts again and again and again, and going over the lovely wisdom Anuja shared with us. Thank you for joining us. All right, everyone. We are at the end of our lovely workshop today. I want to thank you for joining us. If you'd like to rewatch the webinar, like I said, the recording will be available next week on YouTube. You'll receive an email with a link to the video when it's ready. We are going to take this opportunity to highlight our next Fold Academy, which will be on Saturday, April 18th at 12 p.m. Eastern. Author Logan Paler will be showing us how to do historical research to support your fiction writing. Logan's book, The Cure for Drowning, is actually a finalist on Canada Reads this year, and Logan will be appearing at the Festival of Literary Diversity as part of our annual Canada Reads panel. So that's a sneak peek. Because people won't find out until a few days from now about some of what we're offering on our schedule. So sneak peek for our Fold Academy folks. So registration for Logan's workshop is now open. So visit thefoldcanada.org/academy to sign up. Again, wanted to highlight that we at the festival have a lot of great events curated for writers, especially the Fold Academy community in mind. Registration will open March 25th, and make sure to follow the sign up for the newsletter for more info. Speaking of the newsletter, sign up. Our newsletter is now set up so that you can, when you're signing up, choose the kind of newsletters you'd like to receive, whether it's like Fold Kids, whether it is about Fold Apparel, our reading challenge, or in this case, Fold Academy. So please do sign up. Link is in the chat. And finally, survey. We want the Fold Academy is for you, our lovely attendees who show up, and we want to create workshops that are things that you're interested in taking. So please suggest the topics you want to see featured. I have shared the survey in our chat. It will only take you a few minutes to complete, but yeah, we really want to know what you guys are interested as writers, and we want to help deliver that. And finally, Fold Academy, we want to make it continue to keep it a free program for all writers. So to do so, we depend on the generous support of our supporters. So if you find value in it, consider supporting us with either a one-time donation or a monthly donation by heading to thefoldcanada.org/donate for the various options. Again, thank you so much to Anuja for sharing her wisdom. Thank you all for joining us, and we'd love to see you at another Fold Academy workshop. Have a lovely day. Bye.